the idea of mindfulness in Stoicism. The sources or the ancient authors never really wrote explicitly about meditation, but they had this idea of prosoche, which is like some form of mindfulness, but being more like active mindful. Let my actions be my best intentions, so to say. My current practice is meditating about my nature and the nature I'm part of, but in the end it's trying to remember as often as possible who or what I am and what my current roles are in the world at every moment, and filling them as best as I can. That dichotomy of control, it's not about control for me anymore, but about the realization who what I really am or what I'm capable of.
Welcome to the Mindform Podcast, where we delve into the minds of some of the most interesting people on the planet, discuss psychology, philosophy, and personal growth, and share the wisdom we uncover with you. Join us as we explore the art of forming our minds. Here's your host, Frank Lawton.
Kia ora from New Zealand. Welcome to the Mindform Podcast, an extension of the Mindform collective and training platform. This podcast is similarly a space dedicated to exploring and altering psychological landscapes together. In each weekly episode, I speak with a new member of Mindform to extract wisdom, refine ideas, and collaborate on the game of architecting our minds. So this week's guest is Ralph Kurz. Did I pronounce that right, Ralph?
Sounds good. Sounds good. Frank.
Awesome. So he's calling in from the Netherlands. He's normally based in Germany. Ralph is a mental trainer for archery and darts competitors. He's a host of the German Stoic Podcast, which means Stoic Podcast. He's a mentor and board member at the College of Stoic Philosophers, and he's a facilitator for the Virtues Project, which is an international organization dedicated to the flourishing of human virtues. It's pretty cool. When I was looking into a bit of the things you're involved in, Ralph, it was beautiful to see so many human collectives exist out there for the active pursuit of Stoic virtue, and it's neat that you're a participant in so many of them as well. Welcome to the podcast, Ralph.
Yeah, thanks, Frank. Happy to be here. Looking forward to our conversation.
Great. Well, I think I just want to run right into it. So my first question is just a bit about you and your journey with Stoicism. Obviously, it's something that speaks a lot to you because you're very involved in a number of ways. How did you first encounter Stoicism, and what made it resonate so deeply for you?
Yes, I discovered Stoicism in 2016. Before I read a lot about personal development and esotericism and stuff, maybe like how to become successful or happy or understand the world a bit better. And then I was recommended to the Marcus Aurelius Meditations, and it was the first book. I read about Stoicism. I read from an ancient philosopher, and a lot of what he wrote very strongly resonated with me. And I've never nodded so often inwardly like while reading this book. While on my commute, I was like making notes and an index, and everything was like, this is the book. So, and I think it was because his views were very fitting to me or realistic, sometimes slightly negative, of course, but ultimately life affirming.
Mm-hmm.
And this was the beginning of a rabbit hole. Where I started blogging, created a local store, organized a few events, a podcast with two colleagues, and went down the rabbit hole, so to say, at the College of Stoic Philosophers, and got involved in their mission as a board member to spread this solid foundation of knowledge and practical experience there. Yeah.
Awesome. Wow. Yeah. I mean, I've read the book. It is it's a very unique journey. Like, it's a very different kind of book to anything else I've read, certainly. So, and I assume you've read the whole array of other Stoic literature at this point.
Yes, then this was the consequence, like reading Seneca, or at least a lot of Seneca, a lot of Cicero, and even the old ancient Greeks with some German Greek translations of their texts.
So Stoicism is a very it's very niche, like kind of specific historic philosophy, but it does intersect with a variety like Buddhism, Christianity. There's a lot of overlap there. What was unique about Stoicism to you? Like, why did that work for you? Is it just that this is what you found? Is there something in the way that that the values that are within Stoicism? What is it that made it different to all these other philosophies out there?
Yeah, it's one thing might be that I've never been so deep into other philosophies. Actually, it's like reading a bit of Buddhism. Oh, it's quite nice. You're nothing, and you meditate. Though I was raised as a Protestant or Christian Protestant, it never got so deep into like a worldview, like a different mindset than I experienced in Stoicism, and it was, I think, in the beginning the meditations solved a lot of or connected a lot of puzzle pieces for me, like how to deal with emotions in context of everything, the world and around me, how to deal with death, also how to deal with the way the world is, it was like the complete package of solved puzzle pieces, or at least a very good plan on how to solve those puzzle pieces for me. And this was the beginning why I told myself, okay, let's dig deeper. There's everything I want to discover. It's like how to experience the world, or what holds the world together in a certain sense, and what to make out of it. So it's this integrated perspective in the end of physics and ethics in Stoicism. This what I was happy to dig into, and still happy to dig into.
It is a very direct sort of pragmatic philosophy as well. I mean, Buddhism, of course, there is practice that comes along with Buddhism, but it's it's do this for many, many hours, for many years, and you'll see the benefits. And then the rest of Buddhism is I don't want to say esoteric. I think it can relate to direct experience, but it can be just metaphysics that isn't immediately obvious. The meaning of that in Christianity and other religions can be the same as well, where these are all really cool, interesting, beautiful ideas, but I think what's unique about Stoicism, it's a very immediate toolkit, really, and it talks about, I mean, that's what I found reading Meditations as well. It talks very frankly, very honestly about what life is like, the normal obstacles that you encounter, and then a perspective shift or a tool you can utilize to overcome that. And that, I think that's something that's definitely lacking in a lot of other contexts, which is a shame.
I think even compared to Buddhism, Stoicism in the end tries to deal with the world, and sometimes Buddhism, in the extreme, feels like I want to step back from the world and just be.
Yeah. It's very easy to it's very easy to interpret Buddhism like that, and a lot of people who practice it or participate in it do, and it's kind of a loss, because I think it can be interpreted in a life affirming way, but it's not very obvious that it is. Whereas again, Stoicism, there's not so much room for confusion or anything like that. So you started, from enjoying this book and being moved by this book, you started these various sort of projects, I guess, connecting in with your coworkers to make the podcast. You said you ran events, you had groups. Something I'm curious about is what does that actually look like to have, like, what's a collective space where people are practicing Stoicism together? What happens in that space? How do people enact Stoicism together?
Yeah, I think a common meeting format, so to say, is like having one topic for a meeting, and then it's like finding what did the ancient Stoics say about this topic, and discussing, does this fit into my life or not? And this is one level, and you can go a level deeper. Then it's like, okay, what's the worldview behind it? So how do the Stoics see the world in order to come to these ethical conclusions? And then you get to a deeper conversation in terms of how to see the world, or how to see myself, or how to see other people. or how to, yeah. And then it's more, I think, modern Stoics, it's philosophical. Often they are not study philosophers, but interested lay people, which is fun because you have a lot of different perspectives and worldviews that come into play, and it's enriching for everybody.
In the world of philosophy study, which I entered briefly in my uni years, that realm, the really practical, ethical philosophy, does not take center stage, and certainly not that philosophy from that era either. And yeah, it does seem to be much more alive today in lay people who aren't philosophers because they have that way of thinking. They're philosophers because they want to figure out how to live better.
And I think Stoicism also adds, besides this practical stuff, a more like, from today's view, a metaphysical framework as well. So if you like, you can have, it's like, it could be for people like a religion, because it has this logos, it talks a lot about God, and so it offers maybe a level, or a lost level of life for some people that who probably don't have enough faith anymore in their religion, or are looking for something. Right. It could be possible as well. So,
have you found that to be a big part of the impact Stoicism has had on you? You've brought up the metaphysic of Stoicism a couple of times now. It's not something I've ever thought about as personally, like as a significant component. It's not always what comes up in conversations about Stoicism. What's the significance of the Stoic metaphysic to you?
Yeah, it doesn't come up quite often, even in academic literature and in modern communities. So I get it, but I really think in the end, it's it has two levels of spirituality, or metaphysical aspects. One thing is when give me a second. One thing is when Marcus Aurelius asks himself, who is the self? He answers the reason, which is the logos. And then Epictetus, on the other hand, sometimes says, we are a divine spark. So this spiritual perspective for me is get this kind of self-recognition or world recognition that justifies these statements from both philosophers. So the task, somewhat, it's like self-understanding, know yourself, and they had a different answer, or they had their good answer, like you are logos, you are reason, you are a divine spark, and now the task is recognize this, and this is where I would say this is this highly spiritual aspect of Stoicism, but without being metaphysical, because both things, like this internal logos or this internal diamond that everybody diamond, it's like it's part of their physics. So there's no meta; it's only physics, which is it's a different notion, but there's something to discover, I think.
Yeah, I can understand that. I mean, I heard the phrase recently, which this is a bit of a tangent. I won't go too far into it, but I read an article recently that said spirituality is secure attachment to reality, and that certainly resonated with some of my that resonated to me with Stoic philosophy strongly. But the idea that I'm getting at there is that what spirituality is, it's like a spiritual experience is a shift at a really core, deep level about in how we relate to reality, or how we relate to ourselves. That's what the spiritual space is. It's where we play with that. And so I suppose if through these contemplations that you've encountered with Stoicism, you are experiencing a shift, like that, a shift in how you perceive yourself moment to moment, or how you understand what am I in relation to the world, I can see that having a significant spiritual impact.
Yeah. So what really changed my perspective or my mind was this a deeper study into Heraclitus' ideas. So it's not a Stoic, but he somehow influenced or informed Stoic physics. This is this philosopher who wrote a lot about you cannot step into the same river twice, or everything is constant flux. Everything is change. And I took a deep dive into his idea of logos, which is it's sometimes hard to translate. Well, it's easy to translate, but it's hard to get the meaning. And the other reason why I took a deep dive into logos was a German academic wrote in a 70 years old book that it he would say that Stoicism would better be called logosism. Like it's all about logos. So when you look back, with everything or a lot of what they refer to is somehow is logos or an expression of logos. And logos has several meanings. So on one hand, it sometimes means word, like when the Bible starts with "in the beginning there was God's word." It's like in the beginning there was logos, and sometimes logos also means meaning. Sometimes it also means argument. So and when I try to explain it in a more figurative sense, like it can perhaps be understood that something was put into the world by, take the Stoic God, the meaning of which we can read, and if we understand it, we are happy. So when we are able to see what or to answer the question why things happen, why are we the way we are, and if we start to understand or accept it, at least accept and then understand it maybe, then we are happy. This could be the eudaimonic idea, but phrased differently. So recognizing that everything has a meaning, even if we don't understand it, but we can understand it, which makes us similar to this godlike or divine-like creature, that we can make sense of the world, and the sense is laid out in the world through this logos, through some words, and there is sense in the world. Yeah. So this is this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was going to say, this pursuit of knowledge or understanding or knowing the meaning, is that sort of akin in a spiritual sense to, what maybe a better way to phrase it is, do the Stoics believe, or maybe do you believe, that one can approach like unity with creation or with God or whatever you want to put it through reason or through understanding, that is the means by which we approach a sense of harmony or wholeness, but through understanding meaning?
That would be a way I would interpret it. You know what I mean? Right now. Yeah. So this, I would say so. At the moment, this could be possible, to feel unity through understanding.
Yeah.
Or
yeah.
maybe it's both ways. It's like when you experience unity, you understand, but you can also go the other way, like trying to understand and then experience unity. Why not go both ways?
Good point. Good point. I think that's one of the things. That's one of the reasons that Stoicism, as well as Buddhism, speak to me as, I suppose, having unique value as philosophical or maybe spiritual frameworks, is that belief that it's through understanding or seeing things clearly, or like in Buddhism, it's like sort of eliminating ignorance. It's through, I guess, getting rid of that perceptual or conceptual barrier between how we see and understand the world and what it really is, that that we're able to experience, I guess, the heights of eudaimonia or nirvana, I suppose, if we're talking Buddhism. Yeah. Which is not. I find it disappointing that belief is not in a lot of spiritual or philosophical traditions, because it's certainly the case for me that is the most direct path.
Yeah, it depends. I think it depends on what you're looking for. So the ancients at least said, okay, we try to solve or we try to provide a path for happiness or eudaimonia, and other ideologies or philosophies maybe try to solve a different puzzle for people. So it's still valid, I think.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Okay, so what are some major shifts in how you've understood the philosophy of Stoicism over your years of engaging with it? Maybe we've hinted at that a little bit in our conversation so far, but what's really changed as you've looked deeper?
Yeah. I think I first, of course, adopted some kind of, I would now call it today, like the mainstream view of Stoicism as a tool set, which is still a
Oh yeah.
perspective that is useful. So it's not, I'm not going to say that it's wrong, but it's one way of seeing and using and starting with Stoicism. There's nothing bad about it. Um, it's like a lot of people making a good use of the dichotomy of control, to be calm and controlled,
Mm-hmm.
and for the first time even getting the idea, okay, there's stuff I can't control, and then I don't try to hold it in my life. And this, this dichotomy of control is also an example where my view changed a bit in how Stoicism is now, what it's now for me. um, it's like in the beginning, it's all about control or influence and what I can't control. And now it's for me like more like a hint. Who am I really, and what am I capable of? So it's
Right.
it refers back, or it gives me back the power of who I am and what I can do. And it's not much. It's like those three disciplines, like making the best out of experiences and trying to make good decisions and hoping that I can, and it's not hoping, but it's some intentions to action. And this is it. Everything else is up to fate, goodwill, if it will work out or not. So it's not this attachment to outcomes anymore, but to intentions.
Mm, mm, mm. Yeah. Most of these, I kind of seek this out and like I dabble, I guess, in different spiritual and philosophical places, probably like a lot of us on Mindform do. I'm interested in Christianity and Buddhism. And one thing that I seek in those spaces is what is the like really core, and I guess this is what I was getting at about spirituality before, but what is that really core shift in perception that they're getting at here? Like to me, transformation in your life and in how you live comes from seeing the world differently. And it seems people can engage with Stoicism and Buddhism and Christianity and Hinduism and everything else from the level of seeing the world the way you've always seen it, the way culture has sort of trained you to see it, but incorporating a few mnemonics, a few tools, a few useful kind of momentary perspective shifts or thought shifts, or like a few kind of ideas that you hold within that same unchanged worldview, utilizing those to improve your experience a little bit or reach certain outcomes more effectively. But the real, yeah, that real depth and that real transformation comes from, I mean, I think we're made of how we see the world. How we see the world determines what everything means to us, and therefore how we act and how we experience life. Um, and so I guess that's very cool and very exciting to me to hear from you that, over the years it's become a really different way of just seeing yourself and a different way of seeing the world. And I can imagine the shift that has, right? I mean, we all, or a lot of us, find these to be true ideas and useful tools in Stoicism, but we still see ourselves the way that we're told to see ourselves, and this sense that what concerns us is just acting out our values, acting out our virtues, and sort of nothing else. And that's what it is to be alive, and that's what it is to do life. That is not how most people see the world.
Right. There's yeah, it's also, I think the nice thing is to see that everyone is on an individual path, but maybe comes to the same conclusions or similar conclusions, um, which often come down to be, these are often not objective conclusions, but they are very subjective. But everybody can have the same conclusions, so it's somewhat, I don't know if there's a right word for it, but some kind of hidden objectivity. I don't know, subjective objectivity.
Yeah, well, I've always liked this idea that to me, what we think of as objective is so often very subjective, right? We kind of have our own individual maps and conceptions of the world as it is out there, and that's very subjective. But then what we conceive of as subjective, how I'm feeling, what I'm directly experiencing, that's very, very objective. I mean, if you're experiencing it, you're experiencing it. There's no room for interpretation there. That's like a very base truth. So yes, I think that those terms, objective and subjective, there's a bit of nuance there. Yeah, mate. Okay, well, going into like the practices of Stoicism, you've talked about how in your life you've moved. I don't know if necessarily you're saying you've moved away from doing Stoic practices, but it's become more of it's kind of a whole worldview thing for you. Um, what is a Stoic practice or a Stoic concept, I guess, that people normally engage in at a surface level that's popular, that you see in a different way, I suppose, or that you think is misunderstood?
Yeah, I think it's definitely I touched it before, the dichotomy of control. It's not about control for me anymore, but about the realization what I really am or what I'm capable of. And but still, it's a very, very good tool for people, and everybody can make a lot of good use about it from it. Yes, and even I think even the idea of mindfulness in Stoicism. So there's a place of mindfulness in Stoicism, but it's somehow often people try to connect it with Buddhist mindfulness. Probably like, okay, I need to do some kind of meditation. The sources or the ancient authors never really wrote explicitly about meditation, but they had this idea of prosoke, which is like some form of mindfulness, but being more like active mindful, so to say, which is a form I now try to practice more. It's like that. I once heard in an Italian prog rock song the idea that let your actions be your prayer. So this is like the mantra for living. Like let my actions be my prayer. Of course, it's a little bit religious connotated here, but let my actions be my best intentions, so to say, and based on a certain worldview. So my current practice is like yes, a little bit of meditating about my nature and the nature I'm part of, but in the end, it's trying to remember as often as possible who or what I am and what my current roles are in the world at every moment, and filling them as best as I can.
Yeah,
So
it's like something that's, I guess, come up in a few episodes of the podcast for me, probably because I'm talking to Mindful members, and it's comes up a lot in Ryan's work and his book Become Who You Are, is this sentiment of going through life just really rooted in an awareness of my core values. Like, what do I really value? And there's, I suppose, and maybe you're suggesting that there's more to it than that. It's not just what do I value, but it's what am I, and what is my place in the world. But I think we all have these moments of insight, don't we? Where we get a sense for who we are, what's important to us, what we are. But those are moments, and then we go through our life and most of our action somewhat disconnected from that. So to maintain that connection, right?
yeah, right. It's in somehow maintaining a connection to oneself, to be authentic, but not to be an asshole in some way.
I think people can confuse authenticity with impulsivity, right?
Yeah.
If I feel it now, if I want it now, then the authentic thing to do is to act that out. But of course, that's the authentic expression of one small part of you, to authentically express your whole self, or your deeper self, or your higher self, or something like that. Looks very different. Okay, so you're also a part of the Virtues Project, which I mentioned briefly in the intro. It's this international organization. They cultivate conversations. They have the sort of these 5 toolkits or something for bringing about virtue in the world. Can you tell us a little bit about them and your involvement with them?
Yes. So I tried to combine the best of both worlds, at least for in some way. I try to combine best of both worlds, or try to live best of both worlds. What was striking for me these days was that they're both working with virtues. And to put it in perspective, so the Virtues Project is a global initiative inspiring the practice of virtues in everyday life. And its foundation is research into the world's great wisdom traditions. So they combine world's wisdom into their mission, and they want to inspire people of all cultures in order to remember who we really are and to live by our highest values. And in some way, even virtues could also be seen as values. And compared to Stoicism, they have more virtues. Like when we see in Stoicism, okay, they have those 4 cardinal virtues and some supporting or sub virtues, but it's not that very exhaustive list of virtues. And the Virtues Project just collected a lot or all, I don't know, a lot of virtues. More than 100 virtues are available or written down, and they're inspiring people to live them all. And even though it's like the Virtues Project is a non-Stoic philosophical mission or vision, so I would never say that Virtues Project is Stoic. I would not say that. But I would say that the Stoics could make good use of the Virtues Project ideas.
Right. So to you, the overlap is what? It's that the idea of expressing virtue is really core to both.
It's the practice of virtue, and it's that we are practicing virtue somehow as a collective. So we're talking about virtues and what does it mean for our own lives, for other people's lives, and for the greater natures of the world we are living in. And that's what and both Stoicism and Virtues Project are saying here, this is our highest expression, these are our highest values, so this is what we are capable of in the end. So this is what combines them and what I really like.
Yeah, that I read on the Virtues Project site that a big part of the sentiment is that it's to express virtues is to reconnect to something core in ourselves. That's easy to understand, and I think we're all aware that Stoicism is virtue ethics in a lot of ways. That's sort of its ethical framework. But what's the connection to you between this idea of we are sort of reason or logos, that sort of logosism, right? That core of logos and virtue. Like how do those things? If Stoicism is rooted in logos, why does it express as virtue?
From the ancient perspective, I would say that it was the idea of how must an ideal soul look like, and the ancient idea was to say, okay, it's like being virtuous. So virtuous in general does mean like perfect or excellent, and the question then is, what exactly does it mean to be virtuous? And so the Stoics or the ancient philosophers came up with like wisdom, justice, temperance, and courage, and then some other virtues. But and the idea was to say, okay, if you live those virtues, then you have a perfect soul, then you are happy, and then you live to your highest expression, highest self. And I think this this idea could still resonates with me. It resonates with me. This idea that by expressing the highest values, it's like expressing who we really are,
Mm-hmm.
and not only on a personal level, yeah, also on a personal level. So it's like this a double-sided perspective from what we really are as an individual person, and who we really are as part of this greater universe or cosmos here. So that in the end, it feels like it should feel in somehow good for the people. And how do I express this idea? Yes, it's like the idea of being that expressing virtues is like the best possible self-expression.
Mm. Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, I'm sure you can as well, can relate to the experience of how good it feels to live out virtues. It's not always easy to do, and it's not always perhaps immediately or obviously gratifying, but it's fundamentally very uplifting, I suppose. And yeah, it's kind of it's a very deep satisfaction to express virtue. And I really like the sentiment that, at the personal level, virtues or these virtues or values are our real self, because I think sort of from from the perspective of childhood, actually, like I think I can recall. I think we're born into the world with hopes and dreams, and just we want the good. I guess is probably a simple way to put it. Like that's almost a truism, right? The good is what we want by definition. But I think being in the world and the complexities of the world can muddy the waters there a bit, and it becomes less clear what we want or how to express that. But I think there's that fundamental inner part of us that just really simply wants what's good and wants to, and that's all of what we do as we grow up and figure out how to navigate the world and adopt our own unique perspectives and coping strategies is an attempt to do that. And so of course it's something that we're all doing. Everyone's just trying to get the good. So to say virtue is an expression of our core selves, it's like when we find these virtues, we're allowing that really deep motivation of just wanting the good to work in the world.
I think the Stoicism has the problem. It sometimes sounds like, okay, you have to submit yourself to something. Like in the end, it's like giving up your authenticity. But I would say, why not both? So who says, or maybe we are too hardly. There were some traditions between the Stoics and today, which slightly colored the idea of virtue and duty to a more submissive perspective. And why not ask, instead of asking the question, what would be virtuous right now, why not ask the question, what would be my best virtuous expression of a virtue? So just going back to what I am capable of and what I can give to the world. This could feel a bit better than saying, okay, what would be virtuous right now? Where do I have to step back? Where do I have to submit my will? Why not go the opposite from the other direction?
Yeah, very. It's certainly a very common way that people approach morality, ethics, and virtue in the world today is the sense that we are inadequate, bad, whatever, and that to become good is to disregard the self for something external that's better and sort of recraft yourself into something that you're not. But yes, I certainly have been, it's an ongoing learning journey for me, I suppose, but constantly learning that I certainly find the most sustainable expression of virtue and goodness when I seek it in myself and what I actually aspire to and what I actually value. And that when you honor that in yourself and when you honor that in other people, I guess people just get on quite a bit better than if you go around thinking that you are wrong and other people are wrong and that we all need to be different. So there are a lot of virtues in the Virtues Project. I think I read that there was 600 on the website, but
maybe, yeah, right.
There you go. Are there virtues that are emphasized in that space and that you've found to be meaningful or moving or just, I guess, important in expressing yourself that are not really mentioned in Stoicism?
Yeah, I think there are some things that the Virtues Project would also list as virtue that are not really emphasized in Stoicism. And maybe I would switch to the idea of positive emotions in Stoicism, where one emotion is like joy, and which could also be a virtue in the Virtues Project, saying, okay, joy is a great expression of yourself. It could also be, it comes together with an emotion, but this idea that the Stoic needs to be Stoic is somewhat, I think it's wrong. So yes, he's somehow Stoic, but I think the best Stoic emoji would be a smiling face and not a face without any emotion. So so like happiness in the common sense and joy in the common sense are things that, or are virtues or attitudes or emotions that are really not heavily emphasized in Stoicism, at least in the ancient texts. Yeah.
Yes, but perhaps that's just, I mean, we wouldn't know, maybe some people would know, but perhaps it's just a contextual thing or a cultural thing of the time. Like maybe they were treating it as a given that of course the outcome was to experience joy. Just because it's not mentioned, it doesn't mean it wasn't interesting to them. And yes, it's I mean, it almost feels silly to mention, especially to you, but yes, of course, one of the first things you encounter when you actually enter the world of Stoicism, when you actually look into it and read Marcus Aurelius or others, is that Stoicism has nothing to do with being Stoic in the sort of parlance of that term, just kind of grumpily suppressing your emotions and gritting your way through discomfort.
Yeah.
Yeah, unrelated almost.
And maybe even empathy. I think Stoic empathy is different as well. Because it puts empathy on the very basic level of humanity, which could be different in every other tradition, or maybe different in the Virtues Project as well, which is more like this heart warmth kind of empathy, and where I would say sometimes Stoic empathy can be cold, but it can be transported warm. So.
Yeah, I sort of know what you mean. I mean, that was something that struck me reading Meditations, is the way Marcus Aurelius talks about dealing with people that he finds challenging or difficult social situations, is to empathize not so much with like, what's this person feeling right now? I really care for this person, but sort of remind himself of the fundamental limitations of human experience, or something that chap who's annoying him is an expression of, oh well, of course, I'm empathizing with that universal human experience of, well, we're all ignorant, or we're all just trying to get by the best we can, or whatever. And I don't think that's a problem. I think there's a lot of value in that approach to empathy. Yeah. In fact, I think empathy that absorbs too much in the singular or the personal can be, it can be absorbing. That's probably the word, where there's the universal human experience, and that's relevant to all of us, and useful to keep in mind when making any kind of decision or deciding what the world means to us. But there's many unique expressions of how people see the world and how people feel, and not all of them are worth getting caught up in, I suppose. You're not going to root yourself in a particularly enlightening or empowering perspective to feel strongly someone else's rage or sense of injustice or something from a distorted worldview that they have. Yeah. But to empathize with the person under that's built that worldview to cope. And in a way, I like this phrase that the more personal, the more general, or vice versa, the more general, the more personal, which is to say that which is true across all people is truer at the deeper level. You know what I mean? The things that make me very different to you aren't necessarily the things that are most core and essential to what I am and who I am and my experience. One thing I'm curious about, you mentioned before the call that you're working on a sort of a coaching project of some kind where you bring together some stuff from Stoicism and the Virtues Project and a little bit of your work. Well, it sounded like it was related to your work with mental training, given that you're mentioning flow as well. Can you tell me a bit about that? Because I'm curious, especially from this perspective now, where it's a worldview thing, not so much a set of practices. How are you coaching people with your current perspective?
Yeah, I'm constantly refining this, and what I really don't use in workshops for athletes or precision athletes, it's like the worldview thing, because it definitely would go too deep. But there's more like where I use Stoicism is as a tool set, like dichotomy of control, great great value for everybody. And I even use the virtues in general, just to let people to discover that they really are. Everybody has different virtues, and maybe especially in team sports, everybody has different virtues, different strengths and weaknesses, and that together they are really a great unity. They can become a great unit to function and to work. And this is where the virtues come into play. Like I have a small ball with important virtues on it, and there's some games you can play because it's mental training. You have to play games as well. Some way it must should be fun. And then where the thumb touches virtue, you have to say maybe where you recently showed this virtue, or maybe you can ask other people, okay, where have I showed this virtue? It's like getting the recognition of being virtuous from other people is valuable in itself. So, okay, I never thought that I showed, I don't know, authenticity or whatever, or something like this. And sometimes I can also ask, okay, you have a certain problem with your in your sports performance. What virtue could you need? So here are 100 cards. Go and figure out what could be useful for you in this situation. And
Nice.
the nice thing is that I don't need a certain method for it. Like okay, you have to practice this. It's like, okay, use this. You have this virtue already in yourself. Maybe it's not perfectly developed yet, but you can develop it. How would you develop it? So coming from the inside out with a solution, it's more real that's a crazy word, reliable in the end than using maybe different methods. Of course, it's concentration training or breathing or whatever, which is useful, but having this self-efficacy in some ways, it's powerful then.
And to have it self-led, I like the sentiment in coaching that it's not about providing the answers, it's about asking the right questions, right? So that they know that they're sort of granted a framework through which to examine themselves and make their own decisions. And I can see a really promising intersection between these really like acute practices that you can take to different moments, these stoic practices or maybe mindfulness practices, and then a conversation, especially as a group, of, oh, what are my values and virtues in this space? How can I express those? Because then it really turns the sport into a playground for self-expression and self-growth. And you get, I guess I would imagine that through that, right, through, okay, say, there's an intense moment in a sports game, whatever, you've been practicing a certain like tool, stoic tool, and you bring that to bear in that situation, and it allows you to thrive or make the best call or whatever, focus better, whatever it is. To take that, but to have it the whole time seen by yourself under the framework of virtue. You're saying, oh, okay, I've just taken this moment and I've become more like this, or I've expressed my higher values in this moment in this sport, and I can incorporate that into my identity or my life in general.
And then every situation gets transformed into some kind of learning experience. So either I learn about what went good, where I'm good at, or maybe I learn something about where I have to develop some skills or have to practice a bit better. And there's, of course, sometimes you have to deal with losses, but in the end, each loss should somehow can be transformed into a win in the end. So it's, I think one of the main perspectives there is also not to want the outcome, but to want to have a good expression, which in the end often leads to a good outcome. It's like the idea of flow then, which is also like you can have a good flow of your sports performance, but you can also have a good flow of life, where the Stoics were talking about as well, but maybe they're approached differently. But my one task is to simply focus on the task at hand. It's like the entrance to flow, and then the best possible expression then happens. It's nothing that needs to be
Absolutely.
forced.
And there's I've certainly personally experienced there's a strong overlap between I guess that dichotomy of control, practice or perspective, and flow state. When nothing exists for you except what am I doing right now? What's my next move right now? I mean, that's a full appreciation. That's a full appreciation of dichotomy of control. That's what that looks like, and of course, that feels a lot like flow. You're not thinking about the future. You're not thinking about the past. You're not thinking about yourself. You're just expressing the virtue. And you say, you said often just focusing on a good expression is that's most likely to lead to a good outcome. Well, of course, isn't it the only access point we have to influencing the outcome is our expression? And it's deeply held perception that we have that somehow just the mere psychological act of wanting something is somehow useful to attaining it. Like there's no causal path there that me internally wanting this therefore increases likelihood of happen. It's better to just drop that and use all of that mental energy and all of that emotional weight or whatever, apply that to the expression. But I think it's a very hard thing to unlearn.
Yeah. Yeah, you have to learn to want different things than before, right? And
Yeah.
but it's part of the process. And
Yeah.
nobody is perfect, and in some way I think it has to be paradox, like wanting the outcome but wanting also to have a good expression. So the one thing leads to extreme motivation, so it must be of course some kind of healthy motivation, but the other thing is like maintaining like the brake and the gas pedal. So in some way you have to mentally juggle these two, this one paradox in your mind in order to have a good performance.
Yeah, it is a paradox, and it's reminiscent of the paradoxes in Buddhism as well, which is like remove all desire to reach nirvana, and that includes the desire to reach nirvana. It's like, well,
Yeah.
yeah, it's totally a paradox because also, what's the value in a good expression? I mean, there's probably a lot, but people, I think we're argued to these Stoic ways of life, these Stoic practices of expressing virtue, and just your moment to moment expression, how you're acting, how you're manifesting your values, all of that. We're oriented towards shifting our entire focus to that, because that's within a framework of, this is the kind of life I want. This is how I want to feel. This is the things that I want to happen in my life. So without that larger want of outcomes, where's the motivation in the first place, as opposed to drop those outcomes so that we can better achieve them? Now it almost sounds silly. It's so full of contradictions. You mentioned, so it sounds like this coaching program that you're putting together, is it going to be for like darts and archery, those kind of mental training subjects that you work with now? It sounds like I got a hint that maybe there was team sport involved as well. How are you? What's the application?
Well, the application could be general athletic performance, but it could also be business performance, or like performance for doctors who need to how they call it. Yes, like you need to be calm in order to make an operation on a people's body. So this could be applied there as well. But I try to specialize in stuff I like. It's like archery and darts, and sometimes there's has a team aspect as well. Like you have a dart team, or maybe you have a air rifle team. So then you'd be team. I like that. It's some kind of a paradox as well, that you need to have good individual performance in order to have a good performance for your team. Well, it's not that paradox in the end. So yeah, you have both worlds. You need to be a good single player. You need to be a good team player for both sports. And I like the tension there. Yeah.
Yeah. So you play a bit then of darts yourself?
I'm playing darts and I do archery. Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay, cool. So then you apply a lot of these practices, or you've worked on the application of Stoicism into these yourself then? Yeah, so I have a question about the dichotomy of control. I mean, we've talked about that's a hard shift to make, right? To not focus on the outcome anymore. Could you elaborate a little bit more, especially, now that you say Stoicism, to me, it's a real different understanding of what I am and what I'm doing in the world. I'm just someone who has trying to do a good expression, and everything else is up to fate or God or whatever. Like that's I think a profound shift. Whether it's through in your daily life or through your practice in these sports, I'm sure it's a bit of both. But how have you, I guess, managed in moments to successfully fully appreciate the dichotomy of control? Like how can, because it's a fine thought to remember. Okay, some things are in my control and some aren't. But how does one work towards making an actual shift where there's genuinely no concern for the things outside of my control? I can say it shouldn't concern me, but that doesn't mean that it doesn't concern me,
Yeah, I think the question, there could be some questions to maybe to start with, to get a grip or to get less grip on outcomes. It's like, do I only have the intention of making the best use of the situation? Maybe taking, okay, I adopted the role of being an archer, which means I have, there are certain duties to an archer. There's certain stuff that belongs to being an archer, but it should be in the end, of course, we need to have some kind of different motivation from the inside, but from a Stoic perspective, taking this other part of the paradox, it's like, okay, how can I make best use of this role I adopted in order to make progress towards certain virtues? So this is then a perspective I can switch to get closer to this control thing, to the dichotomy of control, to this who I really am. It's like when something, it often concerns people when something bad happens. Like I didn't hit the gold, the yellow on the target, or something else, and then it's like that there's one myth. One myth is, okay, when I'm totally in control, I will always have arrows in the middle of the target, which is not. You can
Right.
totally make trash shots while being fully in control. So there's no guarantee, but you are able to deal better with failures in the end. It's like you can refer back to, okay, I did the best that I could do. What can I do next time better? Because of course the mind then starts to run. It's like, you did this wrong, you did this wrong. Remember your teacher, and it's like, yeah, okay, I
And
know
then you're
this,
not focused. Yeah.
and then I'm not focused. But this perspective is then valuable later, in order to get better and to avoid it. So this is the only thing in your control is what we are capable of right now in the moment, but later on to reflect on it and maybe change things in a learning cycle. Um, that's that's essentially it, and maybe also not taking um, losses or failures personally. So
Mm-hmm.
from the core personally, so that I'm a bad archer because XY. It's like more like, okay, my archery skills could be better, but it doesn't affect me or my real me. So to separate the controlling faculty and in some way the inner dialogue or monologue from the role. Um, not everybody
Yeah.
can be a good archer, even though he likes archery.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that makes sense. I'm sort of placing myself in your mind, I guess, in those moments, and I'm seeing how some of what's happening there is just bringing your attention back to right now, just kind of not thinking about the future and the past when it's not relevant to be thinking about it. And then there's this process. You presented a few questions, like just these useful prompts to ask yourself, so that you know, okay, well, what is it that I actually want? What's actually useful? Because when we're going on autopilot in these moments, what we actually think is true and what we actually think is valuable might not come out. So just asking the questions and allowing yourself to answer them honestly, I think I can see the
And
value in that.
yeah, and often a lot of mental training comes down to knowing what has to be done. So when something bad happens, what am I going to think? What am I going to say to myself in order to get in a to make a check mark on it? Okay, it was bad, but then get into a better state in order to stay in flow. Um,
Mm,
it's the worst thing is when the mind starts to think about what has to happen now. The better thing is to have practiced what has to happen in certain situations. So it's like knowing how to deal with failures, knowing how the rules are of the game I'm playing, knowing what happens when my stuff breaks, like an arrow breaks. What are the rules? What am I allowed to do? So that you're prepared for everything, which brings calmness, of course, but also is a good way to stay in flow in the end.
that sort of reminds me of that idea that came up a bit earlier of it's through understanding the meaning of things and how things work that we can find peace. It's maybe just that we are confused, that we
Yeah.
mess all of that up. Um, okay, well, that might be a good place to end it. I want to ask you just what, with all of your interest and experience with Stoicism, virtue, what is one core idea or core lesson you'd like to leave the listeners with? That's something really essential.
Don't take things personally, but somehow learn from what you would take personally. Yeah.
Mm,
To
yeah,
reflect on
beautiful.
the role and who I really am.
Perhaps easier said than done, but I liked what you said earlier, hinting about how to do it. It's like archery is a one role I have in which I'm playing the larger game of expressing my virtue. Like, what's the larger game? Is virtue a tool for the larger ultimate game of archery, or is archery just a tool for the larger ultimate game
Right.
of
Yeah.
virtue? Yeah. Okay, well, thank you so much for coming on, Ralph. It's been good to get to know you a bit more, and I really appreciate your unique insights and wisdom. Yeah, thank you for coming on.
Yeah. Thank you for having me. Thanks, Frank. It was a pleasure.
Bye bye, Ralph.
Bye bye.
Thanks for listening to the Mindform Podcast. I'm Ryan A. Bush, founder and author of Designing the Mind and creator of Mindform. Mindform is an exclusive community and training platform for sculpting your psychological software. Members get access to a group of like-minded psychotechs, including all of our guests on this podcast, gamified growth tools, events and retreats, and a collection of transformative programs for mental health and self-mastery. You can learn more and apply to join at mindform.io/podcast. I hope to see you inside.